Greetings, nerds. This is CNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, sir. How are you doing this Friday evening?
It's Friday, which, I mean, we've been podcasting together for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think this may be our first Friday.
I think you're right.
I know we've done a Saturday here and there. I know we've done Sunday nights.
Yep.
Monday, Tuesday. Like, we've been through the gamut, but I don't think we've ever had a Friday.
Yeah. I know.
Now.
Until now. We were, it's sort of like Steve Rogers as far as first times and all that.
He goes by the name America's Ass.
He does.
Not in the negative way.
Not at all. In a good way. It really is America's ass. That was a great line.
You know what? My mom is so going to listen to this episode because I've noticed a trend. She randomly will listen to an episode of our podcast whenever I just so happen to curse on it. And then she tells me, she's like, wow. But she knows anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make this weird for her.
She's like, what are y'all talking about? America's ass.
Yeah, because she has no idea. I don't think she's seen a Captain America movie. I'm pretty sure she does it. Yeah, she's cool. Anyways, enough about my parents. We do have stuff to talk about today, including America's ass. But we'll get there first.
Okay.
The news is so sad and depressing and just plain annoying this week that I don't even know where to start about, like, which do you want the worst headline first, the semi-bad headline, or the just like, who cares?
Let's just wrap up, put a bow on the whole CW issue. They finally were bought. The much talked about sale of the CW finally was consummated this week. Nexstar bought them, 75% ownership stake in the company. Warner and Paramount each have 12.5%. And and apparently the average age of CW viewers is 58 years old. I never knew that. But I was like, okay, all right. I'm nowhere near 58, but I guess there were a lot of like old, middle-aged folks keeping the Flash on.
Well, I mean, that's currently, I guess, the average age. They weren't 58 when CW started.
No.
So I think the CW has like this kind of holdover effect when people start watching it in their late teens, early 20s, and then people, even though these shows, like, you think you're going to move on from it, but you still find your way back to these classic soap opera melodramas. But saw that, and sale is complete. We know some of the after effects of that sale, like a lot of the cancellations that have occurred, or not the cancellations so much as like this is going to be its last season. One show that we do know is coming out next year for its third season. I thought it was going to get by without anything. Like, I thought Superman and Lois holding strong. And then we found out earlier this week that Jordan Elsass, who played Jonathan Kent, has decided to leave the show for personal reasons, and therefore they are recasting.
That was one that dropped, I guess, was that Tuesday, Wednesday night, and I did not have that on my bingo card as far as like recasting or show news for that. I mean, of all the things on that network, besides the crazy ass scheduling they did to that show, which I think really hurts it overall. As far as just trying to build longevity and a good solid fan base. But his leaving the show, it was that was a real I think everybody was like a real head scratcher. I mean, I know apparently he had posted on his Instagram back earlier in the summer that he was taking a social media break and he was going into a facility to get some therapy and help with mental health issues. And yeah, and then that post was later deleted. But we get the news that he has decided not to return, and then I guess there was some chatter out there on some social channels. I happened to see one on Instagram, well-known paparazzi photo taker, Canada Graphs, raised the issue about Jordan's vaccine status, because apparently he had posted something last season, I guess earlier this year, about questioning whether vaccine efficacy and stuff as far as COVID. And Canada, of course, still has policies in place as far as not letting visitors in with who are not vaccinated, if I recall. And but the thing is, so some people were like, well, that's probably why he didn't go back. But the thing is, he left before he didn't like leave Texas. He basically told them even before leaving town that he was not coming back. So so his vaccine status doesn't seem to be an issue, and never heard of anything on set or any issues. I noticed in the Variety article where I first saw him leaving, that said that there were no workplace issues. So he doesn't seem to be doing stupid things on set with people. But some people did notice that Alex Garfin, who plays Jordan Kent, unfollowed Jordan Elas on Instagram. So who knows what's going on there? But yeah, it was definitely
there's bad blood, because I mean, if it is for his personal reasons and mental health, then that's okay. But still, it's kind of like a breakup, and it's a betrayal of sorts. They're both really young. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that maybe a few years down the line, they'll have some retrospective on it and realization that it wasn't about him. It might have been about someone else. But then again, I don't know what happened on set. I don't know the full story. All I know is that one of my favorite actors on that show is leaving.
Yeah. And just thinking about how that impacts the show, because I know Todd Hybring, the showrunner, was just talking about how third season they were really going to have a pretty substantial arc with Jonathan Kent this year. And so I couldn't help but think about like Black Lightning. I think it was their third or fourth season when China McClain left. She played Jennifer on that show, and how that really and they recast it with a different actress and they adjusted the story. But that show really does run on that chemistry of the four core characters,
right?
So you just wonder how they're going to address it. I mean, will they just write Jonathan out that he goes back to Metropolis and stays with a friend or something
recasting? So we know that they're not going to do that. They're gonna bring someone in and act like there's no change. And I honestly, especially if the plan was for them to do a big arc with that character, then do a recasting. Stick to your plan.
Yeah.
I mean, the second season was kind of deflated by the end of it, but there's something about the way that the family, or not just family, all of these characters on that show are written that I still find very compelling.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have to recast, fingers crossed, you make the right recasting decision.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, and a season, 2 seasons from now, we've kind of like let go of that former actor in that role. But I don't think it's going to be, I don't think they're going to go the Batwoman approach.
No.
I'll say that.
Yeah. Or it's funny. I had forgotten this, but even Arrow had recast with Sarah Lance. I had forgotten that Katie Lotz wasn't the original actress who played Sarah.
That is not the same thing.
I know. But I'm just saying that there's this precedence in this genre on this particular network with, and as I mentioned before with with China and Jennifer Pierce on Black Lightning too. So it just seems, right. Yeah.
Will, let me talk, Arrow. You can't.
I'm sorry. I know. I was just trying to.
I'm like, for whatever reason, I'm a little bit offended by that comment. I'm like, that is not the thing.
Just keep me on your toes.
I don't know what I'm talking about and why I just think that was really bad. There was an actress, and I don't know, half a second of a scene. Well, not half a second, maybe like two scenes in the pilot episode.
Yeah.
Never saw her again. And then in season 2, we got Sarah Katie Lotz.
Yeah. Well, I really got you flustered.
I was like, Sarah Cassidy. I was so. It's been a long time since we've talked Arrow. Yeah. The weird thing is, I can picture those scenes from the pilot. Yeah. My Arrow memory is still alive.
Oh yeah, you're very vested in that show, like I was in the Flash. So I
did black out during the last season, though.
Yeah.
I just remember Mia in the present, and then Oliver's death, and I don't really understand what happened in between. Probably because Felicity wasn't there that season, but
there's that.
Anyways,
too. Yeah.
So that is the current status of CW. Of course, we're going to talk more CW as more news items comes out. And that brings us to the never-ending saga of Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
Okay, Phil.
All right, real quick, real quick on this one. So we talked about the three options that Warner basically put out last week with Ezra. Basically, get some help. Second option was to release the film, but basically not have him on the press junkets. And then the third option was either a wholesale reshoot of all the scenes or just trash the film like they did Batgirl. But but then we get I guess late Monday, I believe, we get a statement from Ezra, and he basically says that he wants to apologize to and I quote, "I want to apologize to everyone that I have alarmed and upset with my past behavior. I am committed to doing the necessary work to get back to a healthy, safe, and productive stage in my life," end quote. And there we are. So I guess he has checked themselves check themselves into a facility to get help for their mental health state. And and part of me is just like, definitely as someone who is very sensitive to these issues, I'm glad that they are getting help for whatever mental health issues that they're having, because you never want anyone to be suffering. I mean, you just don't, unless you're just a sadist or something. But on the other hand, the timing of it, right after they say this, you got your three options here.
Right.
You can't help but be a little bit cynical about it too.
Oh yeah, I'm totally. At the moment I heard it, I'm like, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I believe that he checked himself in. I believe he wrote that letter, or his publicist wrote that letter. Probably the latter. But I think that there were other motivating factors. Mm-hmm. And that's where the antipathy or pessimism is coming from, about not necessarily taking it seriously, but just like, that's a really a big 360. And it also is because I think from the general public and people who have been following this whole situation for what feels like 5 years,
Yeah.
It's whiplash. And so of course you're going to be skeptical because you're like, whoa, like 1 minute you're robbing, you're grooming children. There's a lot of weirdness, like FBI are trying to find you. And the next moment it's like, hey, I'm chilling with my mom. I'm going to check myself in. And I'm sure, and I've heard some things that he might be dealing with grief and loss and all of that. It's going to take a lot more than in a letter to there. It's going to take time, like just the same amount of time that like got him into this place. It's going to take that much time for the public to view him not as FBI's most wanted, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the time. So like, it's kind of like, oh, that's great. When I watch the Flash movie, I'm still going to say Ezra Miller, great actor. I don't know how he is as a human being. And really the whole thing with the child grooming, like, I don't know, just to still have a lot of questions about that and not really understand what happened, what were the ramifications. You're still like left in this place where you're just automatically associating him with that. And that to me is the most disturbing part of this whole thing.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, because I think the statement definitely is the first step. And there's still things to drop because as far as the consequences for all the items that you noted, like for example, the investigation with the Child Services in Vermont, the assaults in Hawaii, and so as those matters get resolved, and and over time we see hopefully him getting the help that they need. And I try to be respectful of the pronouns. Sometimes I slip, but once we see that Ezra start really showing that he's turned the corner and not getting negative headlines about another incident, then we can then believe what they said in this statement, and they really are on the path to recovery and hopefully getting their life back together. Because I mean, clearly with this franchise, he's done. They're done. But
right.
But maybe
we're gonna make it an awkward press tour.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like poor Michael Keaton.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And even Michael. Yeah. And I saw this. I saw this on some random tweets and Facebook posts about memes with Ben Affleck apparently reshooting scenes that were Keaton scenes. So who knows what's going on there at this point? But yeah, we'll see. Like I said, at the end of the day, I hope Ezra gets the help that they need. Yes, there will be some consequences for the stuff that they have done. But hopefully we won't be. I'm ready to move on from what's the latest in the Flash movie saga with Ezra this week, and we can really see how Warner Brothers is just burning everything down over there.
Yeah. Well, they have for a decade now, so.
Yeah, man, they are. Yeah, even as they took 40 more titles off HBO Max today, and I mean, it's just like every day it's just something new as they try to, I guess, cut costs over there. But anyway.
Well, while things are dropping, they're definitely prepping for House of Dragon to premiere this weekend. So.
Oh yeah. That they're just like this week. That's basically their plan. I think just get all this shit out, and then everybody's just going to be talking House of the Dragon from Sunday night on, and that's all it's going to be in the talk for the week until I guess until She-Hulk episode 2.
You know what I'm really curious about, and this is going to sound funny, but Game of Thrones fans will understand this excitement. I am very curious about the theme song.
Mm.
Because Game of Thrones, that theme song, infamous. The opening credits, infamous. Like I wonder, are they going to do the same thing? Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Or are they going to do something different? I mean, it's pretty on par with Succession theme song, if not greater, just because of how they opened every episode of Game of Thrones with the theme song and a map of Westeros. And based on the locations you were shown on the map, you could tell in the episode what characters you would be seeing. And so the map would change for most of the episodes, you would see like a new place, a new thing pop up and be like, okay, so we're not going to be at the wall this episode, or we're not going to be in the other location. So it just was a very interesting thing to have that change, or like it gave you motivation to watch the opening sequence. But and then everybody would sing along the best they could to a lyricless opening theme song. But I'm very curious about what House of Dragon, if it'll do the same, if we'll do it a little bit different. I don't know. But so that is coming this week. We're going to be watching it. We're going to cover it along with She-Hulk. Will, did you have other shows? Because I know you watched A League of Their Own.
Yeah, so I watched a couple things this week. I know I think earlier in the week, I know we were talking, and I think we both tried Paper Girls. I think we both, unless you continues to stick with it, I tried 2 episodes and I just bailed on it. It just never really did resonate with me. And maybe
I don't think I was in the right state of mind to watch it. I kind of threw it on as background noise, so I wasn't focused on it. I will say, although the plot was kind of a bit ridiculous, for whatever reason, the actresses who played the main girls were really good and they had good chemistry.
Yes, they did. They did.
Yeah.
The one character though, I don't know. I mean, like they just did not. What was it, Max? I think. I don't know. It just did like I said. Maybe I was just the wrong demographic for this show. Or like maybe it didn't grab me, and I just kind of like there's so many other things out there, because then I went back to the menu on Amazon and saw League of Their Own, and it's been I've been having to force myself to like stop because it's obviously it shares a title with the excellent movie. I mean, that movie was just amazing. But it's, really telling its own story. And it is, the characters are just very compelling. The comedy hits the right notes when there's drama, and there's depth to all the characters, and you definitely get invested with the leads. Darcy Carden, she was in Good Place, and I think she on Barry as well, and a couple other shows, is one of the leads. And they really tackle a lot of issues that, it's a very contemporary take on issues that women who were part of these leagues in the 1940s had during the Second World War were dealing with. And I think, obviously updating the story from the original movie that was done in the 90s to present day. And so they're touching on so many different things as far as sexism, LGBTQ issues, racism. I mean, it's just a very, very good show. And I've only got like 3 episodes left, and I highly recommend it. Good. This is really, really good chemistry with the cast, and I can't, like I said, I'm gonna finish it up because I definitely want to see where things go with the ladies of the baseball team, the Peaches. And then another thing I got, other show this week that I really, if you're into documentaries, on Netflix, they're Untold story documentaries. I watched the one dealing with Manti Te'o, who was the famous Notre Dame college football player who was catfished. Very famous story of catfishing. But I guess it's been about 10 years ago now. And and it was 2-part documentary. And he just finally decided now was the time to tell a story. And they had the guy who masqueraded as the fake girlfriend who was Manti's girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And they found out, like right before the national championship game, Deadspin figured out that through a source that this young girl who was allegedly Manti Te'o's girlfriend who died, and he dedicated the season to this supposedly dead girlfriend and his grandmother who had passed away. And then, everything came crashing down. He was like a Heisman Trophy candidate. And it was just, he went from like hero to like, are you so gullible that you fell for this man? And, people were questioning his sexuality. And it was just, all the things that, a young 21-year-old kid is having to deal with, on a national stage, getting embarrassed like this. So it was just a fascinating documentary. And even if you're not a big sports fan or football fan, just seeing, how getting catfished and someone at that level and at that age having to deal with that issue, it was just a fascinating documentary. So those are my recommendations for the week.
Yeah, I've been meaning to bring this up and I just keep forgetting, but I have to say that I have found myself really looking forward to Wednesdays when Talkville drops, which is Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling talking about every episode of Smallville. And so each week they watch an episode and they talk about it. And for whatever reason, I've watched, I don't know, I feel like I came in, I watched I definitely watched a few seasons with Justin Hartley on it. Go figure. But other than that, I was never a really big follower of Smallville. But over the course of the years, as we've listened to Michael Rosenbaum's podcast, I think that's why when they announced this, I kind of immediately latched on. And at first I was like, oh, is it going to be weird? Because I haven't even watched what they're talking about. But I find it fascinating because I'm a sucker for commentaries. And although this isn't a direct commentary, it's more of a rewatch post discussion. Their stories and what they remember about those episodes, especially these early ones, are very interesting. They have obviously great chemistry. And so if you haven't checked it out, I do recommend checking that out. And that's about it. People know me. If you know me, I've kind of have fallen off a lot of shows. For some reason, though, I'm rewatching Selling Sunset for like the 5th time, all the seasons. Some reality TV shows will get me. I don't know what it is. It's great background noise. And so after I've done the initial watch, I can just always throw it on and I don't have to like be compelled to actually be in tune. Anyways, we want to talk. I want to get to She-Hulk. She-Hulk. We watched it. First half hour. We're getting 10 episodes.
9 episodes.
9 episodes.
Yep.
First half hour of 9 half hours. Tatiana Maslany, I have missed you. It's been a long time since I watched like the first 3 seasons of Orphan Black, but she's such a good actress. And on top of that, like Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah.
So he has some of the best chemistry with everyone. He's one of those actors where you just throw him in there and he just brings like the best out of whoever he's playing opposite of. And I love their dynamic. This episode, if you liked this second trailer for She-Hulk, you'll like this episode because I'm pretty sure at least 20 of the 30 minutes are from that trailer.
Yeah.
And the tone is right there. They sold me a product. They stayed true to that. I wasn't thrown off by anything that happened. But like at the end of the day, what was really enjoyful about this episode was their chemistry as cousins, as almost siblings, and just the banter. And I liked how we were talking about this a bit with Miss Marvel and we've actually talked about this all the way back since Hawkeye, about this world, these superheroes exist and they're in the public eye and they're kind of celebrities. So there was one level of the sibling energy banter, and then there was this whole other level of just her and him talking about the Avengers and little Easter eggs about the bromance that we'll never really see between Tony and Bruce.
Yeah.
So this episode was good. It's a solid start. I'm looking forward to the rest of it. It definitely was hey, we're going to do all of our exposition.
Yeah. But it worked.
Right, exactly. Like I said, I have no qualms about the decisions that were made about how to introduce this character, introduce this world, and start this story. No qualms.
Yeah. I think I was listening to a show. I think it was Kind of Funny, or somebody had noted that this episode, the origin story, was apparently going to be held until later in the series. But I don't know if they like heard people like you and me talking, like, you know, how to or what. But the way they introduced the origin story to me was just. It was perfect as far as like it was an exposition dump, but the way it was executed and you know, with starting off with just sort of setting the stage at the beginning with her giving this closing argument, and then the mansplaining colleague, you know, giving commentary throughout, and then, you know. And then whenever he leaves, and then she jumps like, "Yep, I'm a Hulk," and, you know, breaking the fourth wall, which I heard, you know, I've heard all those things about the fourth wall breaking and the comedy and, you know, and whatnot. But you're right. They at the outset said this is a lawyer show, you know, and it's a television show, which I also like too, because it felt like. It finally did. Tonally, it felt right as far as a TV show, and I think the head writer, did she write for Rick and Morty?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I want to say you know, but I know I want to say I've read where she was like the writer for like another TV comedy, and it felt that in a good way, like, you know, the best comedies that really work. And that you know, where he had you know, there are a few definitely laugh out loud moments, but it felt true to itself and not goofy, like for example, Thor: Love and Thunder.
I mean,
I mean, it wasn't Taika humor. I was like, there were a couple things where I was worried. I was like, is it going to be like, I heard like references to Ally McBeal and people talking about Fleabag and other things, but I just felt that the show had its own kind of original voice.
Oh, absolutely. I think that it's interesting because I know a lot of people immediately compare it to Thor, Love and Thunder, but my first point of comparison was actually Miss Marvel, because I felt like Miss Marvel had a very similar tone in terms of comedy, dramedy, and it was centered around a young female character. I felt like this was the 20 to 30-year-old version of Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
Except, and I mean, there is a difference, and what makes a comedy work is when, in the midst of it, the dramatic or the sad clown, if you will, call back to previous conversations we have, when those points come up and resonate amidst all of the comedy. And that's what I think was absent in Love and Thunder, but it's very apparent here, because the moment she talked about why the heck would she want to be a superhero?
Yeah.
What has that given Bruce? Like, and he's alone on this island, and you're suddenly in the midst of this sibling rivalry or sibling fight. You're kind of whiplash of, no, the arc isn't that she wants to be a hero, like Miss Marvel. The arc is she's trying to go against that, and it's not even the same necessarily the same journey that Bruce was on, where Bruce just didn't accept this other half of himself. It's just this idea that now that she has this power, even though she had a plan, her plan is suddenly like she has to realize that, no, it doesn't matter. This isn't a choice. You are almost automatically going to be a hero.
Yeah. Whether you choose
in your DNA.
Yeah, quite literally in your DNA.
Right.
Yeah. It really does. Like, you're glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about that as I was watching it. Do you choose your path? Is your path chosen for you?
Right.
And it was one of those things, as I was watching it, and she was like, look, I finally got to my place in my career, and I like my job. I want to get back to LA, and now you're telling me, you want me to, be you, be you, a superhero guy who's like you said, stuck on this island, and so and look around you. I mean, your friends, one of your dear friends is dead because of Tony, thinking, because of being in this life, and Cap is all, I guess in the past, but you're stuck here alone. And why would I do that to myself when I have a life? And I love the way that, that she, through Jennifer, did call Bruce out for not being around the family, because he was off doing the superhero things, and now you're trying to tell me how to live my life.
Yeah.
So it was just like that whole dynamic. There were, I think that's what the TV show, these shows can do well, like Miss Marvel, even Hawkeye, with whenever he was trying to establish a normal life away from the Avengers.
Well, it's also, like, to that point, and something that I think Coy brought up on Christian Harloff's whole discussion about this show, is that phase 4 of the MCU has been about grief, and the characters that we know definitely are experiencing PTSD from Hawkeye, all the way to Hulk now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And again, to go back to Love and Thunder, I think that there was a anticipation for that piece in Love and Thunder, especially because of that moment in Endgame with Thor talking about how much loss he has experienced, and they didn't really deliver that. It was more focused on a lost romance, if you will.
Yeah.
But the reality is that for a decade, these characters have been saving the world, and yes, they've won, but they've lost so much. And another movie to come out this year, and it's part of Phase 4, No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, guys, if you haven't watched No Way Home, go watch No Way Home. I need to rewatch it.
I do too. Yeah.
I keep thinking every time we talk, Will, I don't know what it is, but there's something about that movie where I just keep thinking about, like, at some point in our discussion, I'm like, okay, now is when I bring up No Way Home.
Well, I mean, because what else is a daggone just a hell of a movie? But you're right. I mean, it really, of the Phase 4 themes that were discussed with grief, WandaVision. I mean,
Yes.
There's so all throughout, even to some degree, Falcon and Winter Soldier with the soldier Carl Lumbly's character. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on the African American super soldier.
Right.
And even Sam and his family. And so, I mean, all that basically. Phase 4 could be basically is the phase that we're dealing with grief, trauma, and overcoming that.
And
as far as these characters, and PTSD, and how these characters, after, like you said, we've gotten up, we got up to the blip, and then now we're post blip, and now we're and people are moving on with their lives, and this phase is really showing that, and how they're coming through that, but also dropping in new characters as well.
Which I think it makes sense why they're doing this kind of this phase is so transitional, that with the Avengers and the characters who we have watched go through battle and come out the other side with all of this history, and with these losses, these sacrifices, this grief, this PTSD.
Yeah.
Now they're coming into contact with these new characters who you have Miss Marvel wants to be a superhero.
Yeah.
Oh, or like a complete fangirl. Same with man, I can think of the actor's name, but Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
Idolized Hawkeye. And so these mentors are trying to, like Bruce in this episode, to bring it back to She-Hulk.
Yep.
They're trying to mentor the new heroes, the heroes of tomorrow. And some of them are kind of like, you don't want this, trust me. And then in this case, they reversed it, and it's more Bruce's trying to say, no, this is the reality of the situation. And Jennifer's like, oh, hell no, that ain't my reality.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something else.
Oh,
I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to go and hook up with Matt Murdock. No, that's not going to happen. I have not read fanfic. I really haven't, guys. I really haven't. That's just where my mind went all of a sudden. But seriously, will it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that's really interesting to as we're now nearing the end of this phase, to think about a lot of the decisions that Feige has made makes a lot more sense now than it did at the beginning.
We definitely see the grand plan, and and thinking about Jennifer and how and when you juxtapose her learning how to deal with being a Hulk versus Bruce, I like the way they answered a lot of questions that, yes, it was a big exposition dump, but it really established the differences between she and Bruce, as far as like, Bruce had to, he was asking her about, well, what about the other guy or the other person in you? And she was like, there's no other person. It's just me. And 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 it's funny, when he like broke out the big binder, it was a very professorial smart Hulk, thing to do. It's just like, here's my master plan as far as like teaching you how to be a Hulk. And I think back to like, even though Bruce didn't intend to do the mansplaining thing, it was a good like parallel to some of the things that she dealt with her colleague at the very beginning of the episode, where he was just like, oh, too wordy. You need to smile more. It's just like all those little condescending things that men say to women all the time. and then Bruce was doing that same kind of thing in a different context, trying to be helpful, but at the same time, it was very condescending. That, oh, I'm smart Hulk. I know how to. I can show you how to do this thing. And she was like, no, I can figure this. I'm a little bit better than you. And then that manifested itself when they had the big, the boulder tossing scene and other things. So, it was just a very, what I really liked about the show, and I hope that the writing continues to be like this. I know before we started recording, you can, when you listen to other people talk about it, the people who've seen the first 4 episodes versus the ones who haven't, when you listen to a podcast. But for our standpoints, for folks who haven't seen the first 4 episodes, I'm hoping the writing holds up this way, where they are really smartly, like you said. I love how you said this is Miss Marvel whenever she's in her 20s and 30s, whenever she has, and figuring out how to navigate the professional world. Because
you can have sex.
Yeah.
Talk about America's ass.
Yeah.
I think overall, the other thing is that going into this, there was some fear. This is She-Hulk. Mm-hmm. They're starting us off with not She-Hulk, but She-Hulk, and look who's here, Hulk. Mm-hmm. And the character we know, so we're going to immediately latch on to him more. But for whatever reason, they managed to figure out a way to introduce her, have her be the main character, and not get overshadowed by her famous cousin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I felt they were total equals as far as, I mean, I feel like they were, on equal footing, for sure.
Right. And so hats off on them, because that would be very hard for some writers and directors to do, but they managed to accomplish that. And it makes sense given her origin story. You kind of can't work your way around that unless you completely ignore the origin story, but they did it. And they also clarified some questions about Hulk in the last time we saw him. So and also last time we saw him, as far as the blip and what he was doing at the time, and then also nice callback to Ragnarok with the spaceship while they were discussing whether or not Cap was a virgin. But seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am not going to talk about the Easter eggs of comics that I have not read, of things that I do not know, but there is a lot of very interesting speculation out there, people. World War Hulk may or may not be coming. But guys, how many times do we have to say it? In Feige we trust. Man knows how to plot out a course, and we're just along for the ride.
Yep. Yeah. I will say, I know I'm glowing about the episode. The only part where I did get a little cringe where maybe not cringe, but I did kind of like, they were doing so well, was the ending with the courtroom scene when
Thank you.
Tatiana, I know it's like came busted in,
Yep.
That was the only, if the only blemish that this episode had was that, because I was like, it was doing so well.
It was, I was completely agree with you. Like, it was such a short moment, but still, it kind of was like, I thought she was the big bad this season, and they're introducing her like this.
Yeah.
It was a weird semi cliffhanger where I'm just thinking to myself, okay, well, how?
Yeah.
You're still scratching your mind around it. You're like, I can't not unsee that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just like, what's her character's name in The Good Place? That's who I was like. I was like, oh, guys, and I know it's probably different. Probably different vibe from that character and stuff, but I just thought of her character from The Good Place just busting into a scene, and it was just took me out of it. And I know it's just, and I think it was because it was just so abrupt, especially how this episode was just so well crafted up to that point, and even but that was the only blemish I had for it as far as this week.
All right. Well, on that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you? Yes,
you can find me wherever you hop on Twitter, at Will and Polk, WILLMPOLK. I know. Just like, look at the podcast. I'm like, oh, no, I was like typing it earlier this evening. So I was just like,
Well, listeners, you can find me wherever you are on Twitter at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. And you can find us wherever on Twitter at SNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and visit our website, www.snnnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Good Pods, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You are welcome.
You're not going to let me live that one down.
Wherever you are on Twitter.
Yes, wherever you are.